What the fuck? Fuck off. No fucking way, man. The tyre's flat again. I got a puncture yesterday. Just yesterday, after Ryan got his. We fixed it, put a brand new tube in. The next day, she's flat again. Jesus Christ. Can you believe it? Look at this. Check this out. Flat as a tack. And we just fixed it yesterday. That same bloody wheel. We're about to leave in 2 hours, so, or thereabouts, so we've got to, Ryan, well, I guess we've got to look at this again.
Yep, better fix it up.
Let's do it. These quick release wheels. Oh, there you go. I sure wish these quick release wheels released a bit quicker. What? How could it possibly be leaking? Unless it's leaking out the valve. Or unless I got another puncture in 100 metres or something. Who knows? Alright, so. Let it right down. See, and they're so soft, these tyres. You don't even need a tool to get them off, actually. You can just see that? Without any tool whatsoever, you can get the tyre off. It's a brand new tube, how could it? Unless it's... Let's put some water in the valve, see if it's leaking. See that? Leaking valve, new tube. I don't have a valve key though. Might have to run next to try and find a valve key around here somewhere. And then we can try and tighten it up and then test it again. If it doesn't tighten up, that means we shouldn't have bought the $4 El Cheapo tubes that we bought. And bought better ones. Just testing elsewhere, see if it's got any other leaks, even though it is a brand new tube. But it looks fine to me, except the leaking valve. And I should have bought a valve key with this. So we've had to abandon the brand new tube that we put in because the valve's leaking, and go back to the very one that we patched up yesterday. Ryan did a nice job on that. Look at that. So that's, I'm going back to the original one from yesterday that I got the puncture with. Just like Ryan, and just like myself on I think the second day, it was a thorn that went through. Little, tiny little thorn. That's all it takes, eh? So we're going back to this one. I've just tested it in the water. See, oh. There was somebody else's onion off their dinner plate in that sink when I put water in there, and it got stuck in the valve. And it just blew out and hit me in the chin. Alright, so that's it. Back to the old one. Which is actually a new one anyway, isn't it? No, that was the back one I got the... Yeah. That was the back one I got the puncture in. So I've had one in the back and now two in the front. And Ryan's had one in the back. Yeah.
So you've had two in the...
So if you count that, well that's not a puncture, it's a leaking valve, but it's the third time, yeah.
So we've had four then, altogether.
We've had four all up. So we're left with two valves, two new tubes. Had to buy another one, that was 3. And even though we had 3 new tubes, we've now gone back to a patched one. So, and lucky we bought that patch kit, Ryan. Yeah? So we had 3 new tubes and a patch kit.
Yeah, we would have been
And we've
screwed.
used them all. Again, because these tyres are so, they're only nylon, they're not, haven't got a steel belt in them, they're very pliable. You can just push them on by hand, look at that, see? That side is already on, as easy as that. So you put a bit of air in the tube, just so it doesn't twist. I might need a little bit more than that. Right, so we just put a bit of air in the tube so it doesn't twist on its way in. Start at the valve, to get the valve through the valve hole in the rim. You always want to make sure it goes in square so that the valve doesn't creep. And then you can see that's in pretty square. Start pushing the tube in under the tyre, down into the rim of down into the hollow of the rim, like so, making sure not to twist it. There's our patch once again. Push him all the way in, all the way around. Like so, and then starting at the valve, push the valve in. Actually, it's a good idea to put the valve cap on so that the valve doesn't fall back through the valve hole in the rim, like that. You don't need it on very far, and then you push the valve all the way in. Starting at the valve, you start to work the tyre on. Usually on a motorbike or a car, you'd be using levers. But again, because this is nylon reinforced rather than steel reinforced, it's very malleable and easy to get on. If you do have any trouble, all you do is get some soapy water and run it around the... There it is, see how easy I pushed it on? The valve is square, it's coming through the right distance, it's square, it's not being pulled left or right, it's at right angles to the valve, to the rim, sorry. Now get the pump. The next thing you have to be aware of is when you start to pump it up, again, it's most important on the steel, on the harder type tyres, tougher type tyres. It's more difficult, that is, to get the bead to pop out. That is to say, there's a line around the tyre, around the edge of the tyre, right there. You can see that edge there, and it's got to be all the way out, all the way around the rim. If it's not, the tyre is out of round and you'll feel it at high speeds, like it's out of balance or it's skipping. So again, on tyres where it's hard to get that bead to pop out, you put soapy water or soap around the outside to give it some lube. How do you like my upside down pump? Instead of holding the handle and pumping it into the shaft, you pump the shaft down onto the handle. It's quite backwards, I know, but it sort of fits the whole trip. Fits in nicely. So with a bike tube, it doesn't actually take that much. It doesn't take that much work. Now, okay, here's an example of where you can see this line here. That's the bead. It's out, it's out, it's out, and suddenly it disappears into the tyre. You can't see it. See that? So the bead has not come out there. So what you do, you keep pumping to the maximum amount that the tyre or tube is recommended to be pumped up. If it doesn't come out, you take the valve out, you let it down to flat again, you put more lubricant around the rim of the tyre, and you try again, and you keep doing that until it pops. And now it's still in a bit there. You can see the large distance here from that line down to the rim, and here it's just a small distance. So it's starting to come out, but it needs more. Now, it's often a good idea to check the condition of the wheel if ever you're changing the tyre. Check for grooves or any damage around the surface where the brake pads rub. You can see it's slightly grooved, but it's not too bad. You can check the condition of the bearings simply by turning these, and by turning these I can feel that they're quite notchy. So these bearings either have to be replaced or at the least re-greased and then re-tensioned on these, what's called, I think, cones. You tension the bearings up with these two nuts. So the tension feels fine, but there's no grease in there, or the bearings are worn out, because I can feel it, it's notchy. It doesn't spin smoothly. The other thing to check for is spoke tension. You have to have a consistency in the spoke tension. None can be overly tight, none can be overly loose. The easiest way to check for that is to effectively play the spokes, play the tune of the spokes. If you hear, listen to this. Those two spokes actually sound the same, don't they? The ring of them. If you hit a dead one, the sound will be very different. And you'll have to tighten it. Now you can also you can hear these ones with the reflector on there. Sound is completely different. And effectively, it's that difference you can actually play a tune if you like. Hey, hey, mum. Yeah, so that's what you do. Put a bit more pressure in that to pump him up, and we'll put him back on the bike, shall we? So we're going to put the wheel back in now. The other thing you do when you put the tyre on, of course, is look for any arrows to see if the tyre has to run in a particular direction. And on this tyre there is no arrow, so it doesn't. On more performance tyres, and a lot of even general tyres for cars and motorbikes, there is most often an arrow. You might have to squeeze the forks. The forks are sprung a little bit, so you might have to squeeze the forks together a bit to get the wheel back in, or you can loosen the nut a bit. A bit more. There you go. She drops straight in. The next thing you want to do before you tighten the wheel is make sure that the wheel is running in the center of the forks, and also test it to see if it's buckled just by eye or running out of true, which it is a little bit, but it's not too bad for this type of bike. Now if it was a performance road bike, you would balance the tyre as well. Balance the wheel, sorry. Balance it. So therefore when you spin it, it should never stop in the same place twice. Most unbalanced wheels will stop at the valve, with the valve down the bottom, because the valve is the heaviest. You can see it's coming back now. Coming back again. Okay, it's stopping where that sticker is. So you can test if it's out of balance, giving it a spin again, and see where it's going to stop. If it stops in the same place, then you know that the wheel is heavy at that spot. It looks like it's going to. So, in fact, it might not be, remembering that that reflector and that valve also play their part. So it's stopped in the exact same spot, so that's where it's heaviest. So it's directly opposite that you would apply the balance weight. But we're not going to worry about that, because we don't have one for a start and we don't get the high speeds for a second. It really does not matter at all. So again, making sure that the wheel is running in the centre of the forks. We tighten it up. This has got one of these quick release wheels, but because the forks are sprung, they may be bent a little bit. I've had to loosen the nut off a bit. So I'll keep tightening it a bit until the quick release system actually starts to bind up, and it is now. That's too tight. Back it off half a turn. It's still too tight. It's a bit loose, a bit tighter. Still a bit loose. And that's probably it, just there somewhere. Yeah. Oh, that's it. Now the next thing we do, because we've had to back off the brakes to get the wheel out, because the brake shoes, brake pads clamp the wheel in, now we've got to put the cable back on. Put the cable back on, and sorry, that's my bad leg. Oh. So you locate the cable in the right position in the clamp on the brake lever system. You pull the cable until the pads just touch, and then back it off a bit and tighten him up, and it's just trial and error from here. That's probably a bit tight. You might see that the wheel rubs, and it does. So we need to back it off a bit. Need to back it off so that the pads are just not touching the wheel and they're not too far away. Oops, still needs more. What's going on here? Why is that one? Why is that pad so low? See that?
It's very down. Up, sorry.
So the pad has actually moved. So we've got to make this adjustment here. The pad itself had moved down. Things always need adjusting. Let's try that. No. Bit down a bit further. That's probably it. Anyway, so we'll bring this up again. Tighten him up. It's just a bit of trial and error to get everything in the right place. You can see it's just touching. Just touching. I can hear it. it's not too bad. We'll just back it off a tiny fraction more. Still just touching a bit.
No, it's the other side that's touching.
Is it? Alright, so what we're going to do is adjust the spring tension then, because it's pulling. See, that's too far away, there's not enough lever. So it needs to be a bit tighter here on the cable. Needs to possibly be a bit tighter on the cable, and then the position of where the pad's centre needs to be adjusted because they're spring loaded. See, there's clearance on this side but not on the other side. But it's just touching on the other side. It's that one. Yeah, that's enough. Yep, so we need to balance the spring tension is what needs to happen. So I think that that's done by adjusting these here. You can see that long tensioned piece of spring metal there. These screws adjust the tension on either side. There's one on either side. So getting out my multi-tool, I look for the little screwdriver attachment, which is here. Fold that back in like that. It's got the screwdriver hanging out, and we start to play with it to see where it goes when we start to move it. Let's try the other side. Oh. That's it, it's bringing it across there.
Going to get you up to the hill to Courage on.
What's that?
Going to get you up the hill to Courage on.
Yeah. Sure hopes that. Oh, that's bloody loose too. Yep, and there we go. One fixed tube, everything readjusted, everything done. Same time next week.